Hello, everybody. So let's begin with a new chapter, stopping by woods on a snowy evening. Now, this is a poem written by Robert Lee Frost. Children, Robert Lee Frost, he was an American poet. His work was initially published in England before it was published in the United States. He is one of those very few poets who have been, uh, you know, uh, given the Pulitzer Prize for poetry. By occupation, he was a poet and a playwright. Now, uh, Robert Frost's poetry style, it could be described as conversational, realistic, rural, and introspective. His poetry is as symbolic of rigidity, frigidity, the waters of the earth, as opposed to the fresh and living water of the fountain of paradise. It symbolizes winter, depicts harshness, calmness, silence, festive season, the season of lights and love, mourning, death, ending, and detachment, to name a few. So, in a way, you can say that whatever he wrote, it always carried meaning. This is what I mean when I say all these things. It's like, they always bring about meaning to whatever he has written and whatever he says. So, let's go through this poem, Stopping by the Woods on a Snowy Evening, and then I shall tell you a little in detail about this particular poem. So, it's like, whose woods these are, I think I know. His house is in the village, though. He will not see me stopping here to watch his woods fill up with snow. My little horse must think it queer to stop without a farmhouse near, between the woods and frozen lake, the darkest evening of the year. He gives his harness bells a shake to ask if there is some mistake. The only other sounds the sweep of easy wind and downy flake. The woods are lovely, dark and deep, but I have promises to keep, and miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep. So, in this poem, the speaker thinks about who owns the woods that he or she is passing through and is fairly sure of knowing the landowner. However, the owner's home is far away in the village, and thus he is physically incapable of seeing. The speaker paused to watch the snowfall in the forest. Well, the speaker thinks his or her horse must think it's strange to stop so far from any sign of civilization. Indeed, they are surrounded only by the forest and a frozen lake on the longest night of the year. So you see, this is where we're talking about the first stanza, whose woods these are, I think I know. His house is in the village, though. He will not see me stopping here to watch his woods fill up with snow. And then the second stanza, like my little horse must think it queer, to stop without a farmhouse near, between the woods and frozen lake, the darkest evening of the year. Now coming to the next stanza, it's like he gives his harness bells a shake to ask if there is some mistake. The only other sounds the sweep of easy wind and downy flake. The horse shakes the bells on its harness as if asking if the speaker has made a mistake by stopping. The only other sound besides the ringing of these bells is that of the wind and falling snowflakes. which the speaker likens to the feather of goose down. The speaker, he finds these woods very alluring, drawn both to their darkness and how vast and all encompassing they seem. The next stanza: the woods are lovely, dark and deep, but I have promises to keep, and miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep. So, like I said, that the speaker, he finds the woods very, very alluring. Well, however, the speaker has obligations to fulfill elsewhere, thus though he or she would like to stay and rest. The speaker knows there are many more miles to go before that will be possible. Now let us understand this poem where nature versus society would be concerned. Like, what is the metaphysical bit of this particular poem? You see, in Stopping by the Woods on a Snowy Evening, the speaker describes stopping to watch the snowfall while riding a horse through the woods at night. While he may be alone in the forest, the speaker reflects on the natural world and its implicit contrast with society. Though Robert Frost's poems resist a definitive interpretation, the natural world it depicts is at once lovely and overwhelming, whereas on the other hand, it is suggestive of something else. Okay? So the fact that it seemingly lures the speaker to linger in the dark and cold suggests that nature is both a tempting and a threatening force. You see, a realm that resists people's efforts to tame it while also offering, the demands of a civilized society. Like, you really cannot think of just, staying back and enjoying the lovely nature. You have to go on with your work. You cannot just stop and think that, this is the end of it all. So here the poem presents the natural world as distinctly separate from human society. Okay? The poem begins with the speaker thinking about who owns the property. That is, who is owning these woods. Yet it's clear that there is no one there actually to stop the speaker from trespassing. You have those signboards written in various, places, trespassers not allowed. But then here, there is actually no one to stop him. Okay, so the owner's house, it must be in the village, meaning that, nobody can really see the speaker. Here, while this owner may think that the woods belong to him, he can't control who passes by. So, the landowner's absence and futility in turn suggests that the human impulse to dominate the world is actually misguided. You really cannot be, dominating the entire world. Says that there is actually complete sign of lack of civilization, and he emphasizes the distance between society and nature. And there are only few sounds that you can hear, like the harness bells and the sound of the winds. So this is basically what the speaker can really hear. And at the same time, the woods are really lovely enough to tempt anyone to stay back and linger on. But then, actually, is it something that one can really do? No, you cannot, because you see, the last stanza is very, very clear. The speaker, he says definitively that the woods are lovely, dark and deep, which suggests that the speaker's particular interest in solitude is what the woods have to offer to him. He knows that he has a lot of other promises to keep, which he cannot actually, shy away from. He cannot just say that, oh, I'm not going to be more interested in that. I'm more interested in what these woods have to offer for me. So he says that he has promises to keep, suggesting certain societal demands that pull the speaker to continue on. The woods are tempting, but he cannot stay back. So, children, you must have also come across various times when actually you want to stay back, you want to just continue looking at something, you want to enjoy a certain bit of nature, but then you know that you cannot stay back, you just have to carry on. And this is precisely what our poet has to offer. He wants us to know that this is not really possible. Well, children, this is the end of the first video, and we shall carry on a little bit more about this poem in the next video. So take very good care of yourself. See you until next time. Bye-bye.